Well, welcome to Your Two Cents. Today we're super excited. We have Aaron Stanger on our podcast today. How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So Aaron, you have your own podcast. You have your really a podcast about change, about addiction. If you want to kind of just talk about that and just kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born and raised here in Utah. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Philippines, and I'm studying psychology currently at UVU and hoping to graduate next spring if everything goes to plan. Um, when it comes to the podcast, our podcast is called Into the Light, and I'm doing it with one of my best friends in the whole world. Met her here in Utah Valley. Her name's Braylon, and she's amazing. One day she approached me and she's like, "Hey, we always talk about these really cool things. Do you want to start a business together?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that looks like, but sure, I'm down." And then it just kind of, I mean, that was months ago, and then it just kind of evolved into wanting to do a podcast. I'm a podcast addict, pretty much. I listen to podcasts nonstop. Um, and so we were both very passionate about change, like you said, but we like to talk about things that make people uncomfortable or things that have made us uncomfortable in the past. And we're like trying to bring things that are a little bit taboo or a little bit in the gray area, that aren't super talked about all the time, especially when it comes to culture in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, into the light. That's why we call it Into the Light. So we cover all sorts of different topics. We're about to launch our eighth episode tomorrow night. But we have a few in the works, and it's rolling smoothly. And yeah, we love it. We love doing it.
That is awesome. That's super exciting, and it's so great to have those opportunities to be able to talk about these things that people don't talk about, or it's like you said, they're uncomfortable to talk about. And I can't only imagine the changes that it brought to you and to your co-host, and that's awesome. Um, I guess like what are some changes that you've seen in yourself as you've been able to like discuss these topics?
I don't know. I feel like it's everything that we do, everything that we should be doing as humans is about authenticity. Authenticity is one of the number one goals that I have going into every day. And something that I've noticed change with Braylon and I is that we're just a lot more authentic. I feel like we were pretty authentic people before, but now that we have thousands of people that know the darkest moments of our lives, we're like, what the heck? Like we can just, I mean, anyone should feel this way, but it's hard sometimes. But nowadays I'm just like, if I'm having a bad day, like it's okay to like tell people I'm having a bad day. If I'm working on something, if I have some goals that I've set and I want to achieve them, it's okay to like tell people and say, "Hey, can you keep me accountable with this?" I don't know. It's all about just authenticity and just being who you are. I think is the biggest change that I've seen in myself and also Braylon as it comes to how we've kind of learned through the few months that we've had this podcast going.
Well, what's the overall division, going a little bit deeper of the podcast?
Well, honestly, we didn't really have a vision to start with. We thought it was going to get like 10 or 15 downloads, and then all the comments that we had were going to say, "Well, that sucked. Like, we don't really want to listen anymore." But as we've gone about, like we've only interviewed really people that we've been friends with so far, and we have 10 or 11 interviews in our archives that we're wanting to release eventually. But the vision is pretty much just as the ball keeps rolling to see where it takes us. We're just trying to help people by interviewing normal people and having them tell their story. And as people relate to that story, we start to hear comments, and it motivates us to do bigger and better things. So I can't say we have a vision of downloads or a certain number of people we want to reach. We're just kind of going at our own pace and seeing what doors open along the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome that you have that kind of vision, that you're so focused on helping others instead of your personal achievements as a podcaster, which is awesome. And I think that's what we also have as a goal. We're motivated to help others. And so that's a big reason why we wanted you to come on. But I was listening to your podcast, or kind of your introduction to your podcast. And you said a quote that was very interesting, from one of your favorite podcasters. I see that you have that hat on.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
So the quote was, the things you're most ashamed of and the things you're most embarrassed about in your life are actually the things that qualify you to help others the most in their lives. Can you expound on this a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. That quote fires me up every time I hear it. I actually have it written on my whiteboard back here. Um, that quote's from Ed Milet. He has a super popular podcast, self-help motivation type podcast. But the basic gist of it is, I feel like as we're going through the hardest points of our lives, the hardest trials, the things we're most embarrassed about, when it came to my life, I was really ashamed of the person I was when I was going through addiction. And if I look back on that time now, that journey that I took, those 10, 12 years that I took trying to overcome my own problems and my own crap in my life has put me in a place right now where I can help others that are going through the same thing. And so at the time, in the moment of trials, tribulation, problems, embarrassing moments, shameful moments, you're thinking, this sucks. I don't want anybody to know this. But those moments are actually the moments that are preparing you to help other people that are going through that in the future. And it's just, when I heard that from Ed Milet, I was like, that speaks to me so deeply. I want to share that to everybody that I meet. And people get sick of me talking about Ed Milet, but that quote hit me like a ton of bricks.
Wow. I think something that you said that really stuck with me, or that came to me, was that you said that you're fighting this addiction for a long time. And that addiction and those feelings that you've had like really just hurt you. And once you heard this quote, you wanted to go share it with other people. And I think a lot of the times when we're going through these challenges, when we're going and facing addiction, we look at it from an opposite point of view, saying how, like, woe is me type of attitude, saying this sucks. Why am I going through this? Why me? Like, why can't you pick on someone else? Like, why do you want me to do this? Like, why do you want me to go through these trials? And little do we know that these trials that we're facing, and I can be going through my own trials right now, and I still don't have this mindset. But the trials that we're facing, we're going through them to help other people. We're going through them so that we can teach our future family how to get through those things. And so you said that you've had this addiction, you've had this your own personal journey through of changing. What was it like experiencing that?
It was gosh. I mean, the word that I feel like describes it most is it's a journey. I feel like you start out very naive and ignorant of anything that's going on in your own life. You're ignorant about whether it's a positive or a negative thing. In my situation, I was very ignorant about whether this is something that I should stop or not. And eventually it just takes over. I mean, biology takes over, brain chemistry takes over, and you can't stop when it comes to addiction. And you just get to this point. I feel like, I mean, and everyone's story is individual. So like my story can apply to certain people, but it doesn't apply to others. But I got to a certain point where I was sick of not being who I was to everybody. I was sick of relapsing in the addiction and feeling like crap, being like, I can't look at myself in the mirror, much less look other people in the mirror or in the eye, which is the greatest feeling in the world when you're able to walk down the hallways of a college campus and you're able to look at people in the eye and smile at them, and it's genuine and it's sincere and it's authentic, just like we were saying. But yeah, the thing that I feel like describes the most is just a journey. It's a 180-degree turn from the darkest moments of my life 8 to 10 years ago to who I am today. I feel like.
Well, that is strong. That can motivate anybody to change, just those simple words that you just spoken. Like, what was it that, like, 'cause so we want to focus our podcast on change and leadership, and so many people get so close to changing within an addiction, they just have to take that next step and they never do, and they go back and they relapse, and it goes on and on and on until they actually change. Like, what motivated that change? Like, what made you take that step?
That's a great question. I think part of it was fear. I was motivated by fear of who I was becoming. But the greatest motivation to me was of who I could become, getting over it, if that makes any sense. I think, I don't know, motivation's a hard word, and I feel like it's overused. I think discipline's a better word because you
Yeah.
find motivation along the way of doing something. But the 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 part that changed my life the most was making recovery a priority, changing my life a priority, which means I have to take responsibility for everything that I've done in the past, and I have to take responsibility for who I'm becoming now, starting tomorrow. I wake up tomorrow, everything in the past is behind me, and I'm ready to prioritize this recovery, this healing, number one in my life, so I can be myself and I can be my whole self to other people in the future.
That's great. That's awesome. I love how you like made the difference between motivation and discipline, because a lot of time it is self-discipline, and for myself, like fighting the addictions that I've had in my own life, and fighting the trials that I've had in my own life, I think the hardest point for me was behind closed doors. I was one person, and no one saw the addictions I was going through. And when I go in public and people like they rant about you, they were like, "Oh, you're such a good person. You're such a leader. You're such a lovely person," and all these compliments that I was getting. And then deep down inside myself, I was like, "I'm not the person that people see me as."
If only you knew.
Right. And so I think that's the hardest part for me in the current trials that I'm going through myself, is that I want to get to the point where the people that see me at my best, when I'm fulfilling the things that I need to do best, the community around me see me as that person. That's where I want to be. I feel like sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, and so like just pinpoint hard on on ourselves, that we see ourselves as a different person, because a lot of people don't see what we do every day.
Yeah, and I feel like, sorry, I just have something to add in there, if that's okay. I think a healing journey or a journey of recovery is, I don't know, a mindset of addiction kind of feels like I'm being selfish if I put myself first in this situation. But you have to absolutely put yourself first when it comes to recovery or healing or change. Because until you put yourself first, until you prioritize your own healing of your whole self, you're not going to be able to change other people's lives or help other people in any sort of way that you could.
Yeah, you definitely have to be able to be in a good place before you help someone else. That's for sure. And then, like you're talking about earlier, like it's so easy to hide the things that we struggle with. For me personally, I've hidden a lot of things from loved ones and stuff that I've struggled with, and that wasn't helping me. And that's not going to help any of us. What I've found is whenever I've reached out to either friends or close family members and talked to them about things I've been struggling with, light has come into my life, and support. Support is so important for our journey to progress. So that's what I'm thinking of. Don't hide what you're struggling with. No one's going to judge you if they love you. They're going to be there and support you.
They're going to love you more if you're your authentic self.
Yes.
Yeah, and just thinking about that at a deeper level, like God knows what we're facing. Christ knows what we're facing. He's faced everything for us already. And he knows our DNA. He knows us, every battle that we're going through. And he gives certain people in our lives, he allows people to certain, oh my goodness, I cannot speak. They allow people to come into our lives so that they can help us through these addictions, through these battles, through these trials. And they can be super small trials to one person, but also it could be the biggest trial to someone else. And so, like Jericho said, like you can't keep those things hidden. You can't keep those things behind doors. You have to reach out to someone. Who was that person that you were able to reach out to in this situation?
It was actually a couple of really close friends I had on my mission. It was people that I had grown with over a period of, it was about 6 or 7 months, grown with them together, to the point where I felt comfortable enough to be my full self to someone. It was the first time in my life I feel like I had been my full self to someone, and that moment of decision of being able to open up to someone that loved me and I loved them was probably the major pivot point in my recovery, in my healing, is that moment of being able to open up. And they don't mind if I share their names. Their names are Tanner Stoll, Kyle Mahaffey, two of the best dudes that I've ever met in my whole life. And they've been with me ever since. And the crazy thing is, when I opened up to them, I expected shame back because that's how I was treating myself. But it was incredible how we were able to relate to each other on a much deeper level.
Talking about relating with others and opening up, it's crazy to like whenever you open up about certain things with your friends, it's kind of cool to be like, wow, they're I mean not that they have their own problems, but that you can relate with them and some have the same problems as you and you're like, wow, this is more prevalent than I think because it's so easy to be like, I'm the only one struggling. I'm the only one that can't overcome this addiction. I'm the only one that can't change. But there's people who are close to you in your life for a reason that are going through similar things that if you just open up about it, they can help you and you can help them.
I know the response I got back was, shoot, dude, why did you not tell us this sooner? Like, we've been through that. Like, we can relate to each other. Like, we just got to be more open and vulnerable because people go through the same things. And if it's not exactly the same, it's similar enough. And you can relate and help each other along the way.
Yeah, in this life, it's all about progress. It's all about having those struggles. And there's a reason why we have close friends and family.
No,
So utilize
absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like Jericho and I have been going through the same situation. Like, he's a Dallas Maverick fan, I'm a Pelicans fan, and we just want to go to the finals, and it's not happening. Like, I'm
Hey,
glad
hey,
that I
hey.
can relate to Jericho with that.
The
You know, I
Utah
hate to
Jazz
say
are in
that
the
some
same
things
boat.
are,
Yeah.
I hate to say some things are hopeless, but Pelicans and Mavs are probably never going to
I don't think there's change there.
Utah Jazz got to start at square one.
Yeah, we're in rebuild mode. That's okay.
It's very true.
We're all in a rebuild mode, Reno.
Very true. So how, like, these experiences you faced, these trials that you faced, how do you think it's helped you? And I know we kind of covered this a little bit already, but how do you think it's helped you become a leader, and how has it increased your faith in humanity, in other people, and in yourself?
I'm honestly a little bit nervous to call myself a leader. And when I listened to the first episode of y'all's podcast, I was like, I don't feel like I'm qualified at all to be interviewed, based on the mission statement of your guys' podcast. But I don't know. It really just comes down to being able to be your authentic self. I think I don't mean to bring up politics, but I don't feel like politicians are leaders in today's world. The people that lead and the people that are looked up to and are examples in today's world are those that are not afraid to be their authentic selves. If you think about the people that you're closest to in your own life, are the people that you know their struggles and their weaknesses, and you're okay with it, and they're okay with it. They're okay with you knowing. And so I think it's all about just being able to be authentic and not having to hide anything. You're just yourself. You can just do whatever. And to answer the second part of your question with how has that increased my faith in humanity, it's basically with myself. It's to see who I was 8 to 10 years ago compared to who I am today. If certain aspects of recovery and healing, like self-discipline, but more than anything, the atonement of Jesus Christ and utilizing that can change me into the person I am today compared to who I was back 10 years ago, that increases my faith in humanity and that literally anybody can change, because I was a wreck 10 years ago. And I feel like I'm at a point right now where I can be confident and be okay with whatever anybody thinks about me, you know? And that fills me with faith. It's hard not to be filled with faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like there's so many opportunities that you can go now do to inspire other people, and this is just one way, like you said, your podcast, and how amazing it is. Like, you kind of talked about being yourself, like letting other people know that you struggle, letting other people know that you're going through these trials. And you said you don't feel like a leader, but you you are a leader, and we're grateful that you've been able to come on the show today. We have about 5 minutes left. We love recording from Zoom, so we don't last a long time. I'm sure we could talk about this for hours. But Jericho, do you have any last questions?
Nothing that came to mind, honestly.
Okay, I do have one last question. Like we said, the title of our podcast is Your 2 cents, and so what would be your 2 cents now that you would tell yourself 10 years ago when you're going through those hardest times? What's some advice that you tell yourself 10 years ago, and then some advice that you tell people right now that are struggling and facing trials?
That's a great question. I think the advice that I would tell myself 10 years ago is that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to show you that you're struggling. Um, it doesn't make you less of a man to struggle. It doesn't make you less of a person to struggle. And the thing that I would tell people nowadays is just to start. I think everyone gets overwhelmed with the steps or the long-term goal or vision of whatever it takes to change yourself into who you want to become. Just start. Just find that first step and take that step, and then find the next little step and take that step. I think the biggest thing for me nowadays, we talk about motivation, and you're not going to wake up motivated every day, but I feel like every single person needs to find something that they love doing and to make a project out of it, to make a goal out of it. Something for me in my recovery, it was fitness and it was exercise. And I mean, that's carried on until today. But I feel like the thing that helped me most is absolutely whooping my butt in the gym, because that was something that I was passionate about. And it got me up every day. And I feel like every single person has something that they're passionate about, whether it be writing or reading or doing social media posts or anything, painting, like cooking. You can choose whatever it is that you're passionate about, but find something that gets you up in the morning and gets you focused on productive things, so you can learn and grow as a person along the way as you begin to achieve some goals.
Perfect. Go ahead, Jericho.
So yeah, no, you're good. So a part of that you're talking about being authentic. That's actually something that I've been trying to focus more on recently over the past year or so, because I came back from my mission very, I don't know, it's kind of weird to describe, but I was like, I got to be perfect and I got to make sure everybody else thinks I'm perfect. Um and that just is a bad view for myself, because whenever I made mistakes, it was really hard. And then when other people made mistakes, I was hard on them. And I kind of had to go through a hard time to notice that I'm not perfect and to be okay with not being perfect. And I've started to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell my friends and family that I'm not perfect and be more open about my struggles. And people open up more when you do that. People respect you more and you get closer with people. And so just be authentic, and have that support for you there. So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jericho. Thank you, Aaron. If anybody's struggling with addiction, with anything, it doesn't have to be a horrible addiction. It doesn't have to be anything like super crazy, traumatic. But if you're looking for spiritual motivation, if you're looking for a way to be able to eventually come out of your shell, be authentic, and looking for that help, Aaron, your podcast is amazing. You're going to be changing a lot of people, and we invite everybody who's listening to us to go check it out. And if you want to give a little bit information on that, just one last time for people to go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the little shout out. It's Our podcast is on any platform that you can reach, mostly Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcast. It's called Into the Light. Artist titles Braylon Drew and Aaron Stanger, and you can also find us on Instagram at Into the Light 5024. And we post content weekly, inspirational, motivational, whatever it might be.